Well, it's official. Kevin McCarthy is no longer the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives. But before we unpack all that, if you haven't yet, please hit that like, subscribe, and the alert bell. Maybe check out my Patreon. I'd appreciate the support. All right, folks, so this just happened. We have several clips to play, but there's no need for delayed gratification. You and I and all of us, we can't stand Kevin McCarthy. He was a liar and a coward. So I want to skip to the very end. I want you to see the clip in which the votes are tallied and the declaration is made, and we'll bask in it together.
On this vote, the yeas are 216. The nays are 210. The resolution is adopted. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. The office of Speaker of the House of the United States House of Representatives is hereby declared vacant.
It's a done deal. That was when it happened. That was the moment. So every Democrat in the Democratic caucus was joined by 8 Republicans. That got the majority, and Kevin McCarthy is officially out. The speakership is currently vacant. The House of Representatives will be effectively paralyzed until an interim speaker is appointed. We'll look into that in just a minute. But yeah, this is a big deal. How did we get here? Well, as you know, Kevin McCarthy basically gave the farm away back in January when it took him 15 attempts to become Speaker of the House. He made a Faustian bargain with the devil. He gave so much power away to MAGA Republicans in the Freedom Caucus just to get the gavel, and essentially he's been held hostage by them ever since. Now, we have no sympathy for him because, again, he's a coward and a liar, and he deserves everything he gets here. But this was inevitable if he came into conflict with MAGA Republicans like Matt Gaetz, who have even less interest in responsibly governing than McCarthy does, and so are willing to throw the entire House into chaos. And that's exactly what happened. After Kevin McCarthy finally bent the knee in the 11th hour to President Biden and Democrats to avert a government shutdown, Matt Gaetz, as awful as he is, followed through on his word.
The gentleman will state the form of his resolution.
Declaring the office of Speaker of the House of Representatives to be vacant. Resolved that the office of Speaker of the House of Representatives is hereby declared to be vacant.
That was from earlier today when Matt Gaetz decided to trigger the motion, or excuse me, it was late yesterday. That was when he began the motion, okay, which, of course, you had to win a majority vote to do it. Now, what's funny is on Twitter, Kevin McCarthy says, bring it on. I don't know why you would say that to somebody as deranged as Matt Gaetz and his ilk, but Matt Gaetz called his bluff and said, we just did. So then the question becomes, all right, well, you know, there were some Republicans obviously looking to get McCarthy out of his job, but most Republicans were willing to back him. So when Kevin McCarthy was asked about this earlier today, this is what he had to say.
Expecting Democrats to back you up then?
No, I personally am not.
Do you need their help to remain in leadership?
No. If five Republicans go with Democrats, then I'm out. So it's whether.
Likely.
Probably so.
So he knew the writing was on the wall earlier, right? But then the question became, well, why didn't he try to work with Democrats to save his speakership? Well, the problem is he has no credibility. As it was reported earlier today, that option went out the window. Reporting said Democrats will not vote present and not vote to table the motion, basically to stop Matt Gaetz's motion to vacate from going there. There were opportunities to essentially thwart that attempt, but Democrats said they wouldn't help thwart the attempt. They were going to actively vote to allow Matt Gaetz's motion to push Kevin McCarthy out of his job. They were going to allow it to go to a full vote. McCarthy's actions on January 6th, his trip to Mar-a-Lago, in which he bent the knee once more to Donald Trump in the aftermath of January 6th, his attempt to discredit the January 6th committee, his reneging on the debt limit deal that he made earlier on in May with President Biden, and his actions this weekend are all the reasons. So he had an opportunity, if he'd been more reasonable, more bipartisan, more good faith, to have the Democratic conference come to his defense, but he burned through whatever goodwill he had. And as a matter of fact, apparently this particular clip from over the weekend, after McCarthy, again, bent the knee to President Biden in the 11th hour to allow the government to avoid a shutdown for 45 days, well, McCarthy then said this over the weekend.
Were you confident we wouldn't shut down?
I was confident I could get something on the floor to make sure the option that we would not.
But
that
you
our
weren't sure
military,
it was going to pass.
Well, I wasn't sure it was going to pass. You want to know why? Because the Democrats tried to do everything they can not to let it pass. They did
Democrats were the ones who voted for this.
Did you watch?
So Kevin McCarthy said this to the press over the weekend. Again, after his conference nearly caused a government shutdown, he blamed the Democrats for it. He was like, well, we could have gotten this done sooner, but it's the Democrats' fault that we almost had a government shutdown. Apparently, that video was played when House Democrats met earlier this morning to consider whether or not to try to make a deal with McCarthy or to save him. And this was the thing that tipped things over. So Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic leader in the House of Representatives, he issued a statement. We confront a serious, solemn, and sober moment. The vote that the House will cast this week in connection with a motion to vacate the chair is not about any one individual. Our responsibility as members of Congress relates to the Constitution, the principle of good governance, and the people we are privileged to serve. Nothing more and nothing less. In that regard, House Democrats remain willing to find common ground on an enlightened path forward. Unfortunately, our extreme Republican colleagues have shown no willingness to do the same. It's now the responsibility of GOP members to end the House Republican Civil War. Given their unwillingness to break from MAGA extremism in an authentic and comprehensive manner, House Democratic leadership will vote yes on the pending Republican motion to vacate the chair. So again, all of McCarthy's chickens were coming home to roost, all the bad faith that he burned through. And instead of being able to turn to the Democratic Party to save him, they said, no, actually, we're going to back the motion to vacate. We are going to contribute to you suffering the consequences of your deceit and your cowardice. And so Matt Gaetz's motion to vacate the chair was able to go through. It was able to be brought to a full vote. Republicans tried to stop it, basically try to kill it in its crib. They failed to do so. And then I just want to add this in here because, of course, we played the clip in which the actual full vote to remove McCarthy was tallied at the end. And again, 8 Republicans voted with all Democrats to get McCarthy kicked out of his position. But things were so deranged today between Matt Gaetz and the other 7 Republicans looking to kick Kevin McCarthy out of his role and the Republican Civil War that one of the Republicans, who's also very deranged, he's a Freedom Caucus member, Chip Roy, he had this to say when Matt Gaetz effectively called him a Republican in name only for not being willing to kick McCarthy out of his position.
Not me and call me a rhino, you can kiss my ass. Look, I've spent a lifetime fighting for limited government conservatism. I have laid it all on the line. I've not seen my family but for 2 days in the last 30 days. You go around talking your big game and you thumping your chest on Twitter. Yeah, come to my office and come have a debate, mother. You know why? Because I'm standing up for this country every single day.
Yeah, so you can see how terribly well adjusted the Republican Party is at the moment. Last thing I'll say is this. Now that Kevin McCarthy's out, again, the House of Representatives is effectively paralyzed. It's not like Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic leader, automatically ascends to the speakership. There will eventually be another vote to replace Kevin McCarthy as the speaker. And in the meantime, an interim speaker will be appointed. Apparently, every time a speaker is confirmed, they have to appoint basically a list of potential interim replacements. And this person is just effectively a brief temporary administrative officer until a full speaker can be confirmed. So I'm not sure what the timetable is for this because as far as I know, this has never happened before. We've never seen a Speaker of the House removed like this. Obviously, we've seen speakers come and go, but not like this. So in a way, Kevin McCarthy has made history. Couldn't have happened to a worse person. He is, in my opinion, just as bad in his own way as somebody like Matt Gaetz because Kevin McCarthy knows better, and Kevin McCarthy had a moral and political obligation to try to correct the Republican Party, and he had every opportunity, particularly in the absence, or in the aftermath, rather, of January 6th. There was a window of vulnerability for Donald Trump in which, at least theoretically, the Republican Party could have been saved, it could have been salvaged, and at least been on the way to becoming a good faith, loyal, conservative opposition party. And instead, again, Kevin McCarthy went down to Mar-a-Lago and begged for Trump's forgiveness. And so this whole thing is Kevin McCarthy being hoisted by his own petard. I have no sympathy for him whatsoever. We should all celebrate, bask in his misery and the contempt that everyone feels for him because he completely, 100% deserves it.